me just double check, make sure my desktop audio is on. It should be.
Well, your mic works.
There he is. We're good. How's it going,
Hello.
man?
Yeah, it's good. It's really good.
How's it going?
How are you doing?
Did you like the picture I had of you?
It's like a little like I'm kind of like staring into my own soul when I look at that picture. I don't know. It's a little
So,
uncomfortable actually.
somebody else already said that. So before we get anything on the go, I just want to let everyone know, including you, about how lucky that blue shirt is. Okay?
Well,
After
the
watching your runs, I think 80% of the time you're wearing that shirt when you get the record.
the real trick to that shirt. This is my secret. Is I actually have 3 of that shirt.
What?
I have 3
Three?
copies of that shirt, so I can just always wear it.
That's
It's made of a really thin material. It's really great for streaming because I don't sweat basically when I'm wearing it.
true. See, I
That's why
sweat
I
all the
like it so
time when
much.
I'm streaming. I gotta like go
Yeah,
through like 4 shirts.
yeah, yeah. It's my tech.
It's my
That's
it's your good tech.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's how I credit warp.
right? So, you're like the master of the credit warps, essentially.
At this point, that's kind of fair.
Well, you've been
At least the human credit warps.
right. You've been on it
Yeah.
since the beginning too, right? Like since it was first developed, before even a human had done it, you were on the go, right? You were like, this is cool. I want to see if humans can do it.
That's actually not quite true.
No?
No, Jeff W356 is the original, is the OG
Hmm.
human.
Oh, he
Um,
actually did it as human first?
he did it on emulator.
Oh, that's
I was
right.
the
It
first
says right
person to do it on the
here.
console.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. Okay.
but yeah, ever since then I've sort of taken charge. I haven't always had world records, but I've always been very involved in developing the routes. And it's like one of the things we'll go through is kind of the history of how all that went down.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, so was there any problems with thinking that it's not going to work on console?
Yeah, and when you when you watch my reaction from the very first one, you'll see it. You'll see it in my face because I really did not. I was not sure that it was ever going to work. I knew that it would work in. I knew that it worked on emulator,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean I'd seen other credit sports from Tassers, but I didn't
Yeah.
know if any of those were or were actually ever verified on on console. So
Cool.
it
So
sounds like I might be louder than you.
no, I got it. I got it.
Okay,
So
cool,
is
cool.
it was like super exciting. It was a super exciting time.
Yeah, yeah, and especially because, well, in that run, in that first run that we're about to see, I actually thought I messed up something and that it was not going to work, and so I
True.
was like double surprised because not only was I not sure if it would work overall, uh, I I also thought it wasn't even possible for that run, like even if it was like on emulator, to work.
Right on. So, for anyone in chat wondering, we have a video here that goes through like the kind of like the little history, but the history of Seth, right? Not just the true history, which he'll let us know what's going on with that. But we've got a video here, and it's approximately 20 minutes long, and it's gonna go through his little thing about how he came to be what he is now with the whole thing.
Yeah,
So,
my
um,
journey.
yeah, exactly. Your nice little journey. So, do you want to start the video now? And the first one is
Yeah,
close to 6 minutes, and that should be a good time for you to kind of explain to everyone what's going on. I mean, we
yeah.
get a lot of people here who are in the Mario 3, so it's time to really show them why Super
Mhm.
Mario World might be better than Mario 3. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings
All
here.
right, all right.
Mario World versus Mario 3, man, it's a big fight for years. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, go.
All right. So, first, I want to talk about the history, just like a brief history of where all this came from before
Yeah.
I even started. There were some TASes before I did anything. Tool assisted speedruns, handcrafted, frame by frame with save states and everything. Master June and P4 Plus 2 were some of the people to work on the very first credit swap that worked. That
Right
one
on.
was kind of insane. That one involved like getting a bunch of fish on screen and like leaving them on screen for a certain amount of frames because fish would like make calls to the random number generator, and you needed like thousands of calls to the random number generator to get the seed for the random number generator just right.
Damn.
That was pretty crazy. But eventually Master June found this way to do it, which is actually pretty similar to, well, basically the most recent route, but it actually has similarities to all of the routes that you'll see throughout this interview.
Yeah.
the Master June made that like kind of first really good task. It was like 42 seconds from power on, which
Dang.
is super fast. That was right before the cloud was discovered, the cloud glitch in 11 exit,
Mm-hmm.
and that cloud glitch also relies on a very similar trick. It's called the item swap, and it involves Yoshi, a coin, and a charge and chuck.
Yeah, what level is
And
it? I've definitely seen that before. That's so you get a
so
cloud in your inventory item at the top, right?
yeah,
And you
yeah,
use
that's the
that
same
cloud.
level.
Okay, you
That's
use
this
that
level.
cloud on Bowser.
Right, yeah.
Okay, okay, okay.
But we don't use the cloud for credit swap. But the same glitch gives you the cloud, but it also like crashes the game in a way that we can take advantage of, and that's sort of what all the credit swap is all about.
Okay,
Um,
hold on just one sec. So everyone who has like tons of questions about like what he's doing right now, his second run after this one is pretty similar to this one, and that'll be time for us to like ask questions about what he's doing in these levels. So
yeah,
be
yeah. Since
patient, give it a couple minutes. You guys will get to hear about it.
they're the exact same route, so I'll go into a lot more of the details the second time through,
Yeah,
basically.
we just get in the
Uh,
history here.
yeah. So this one that you're watching is the very first ever like console credit swap.
Mm-hmm.
The next one was my first world record.
Nice.
So then a few months after the cloud was discovered for 11 exit, out of nowhere there's this VOD surfaces, this Twitch VOD from somebody I didn't know at the time.
Gotta
I
love
think
the
that most
random
runners
Twitch
didn't.
VODs.
Yeah, and it's by a guy named Jeff W356.
Okay.
And so he did what you're seeing now. He actually did it a bit faster than I did. He did it about a minute faster than what I got in this video. But it was a similar route. It had some differences. This route that you're seeing right now actually has some improvements over that. But he just did it. He did a credits warp, and
Yeah.
and he didn't explain anything about it to anybody.
Oh no.
He just did some streams. He like got it on his first run of the day or something, and then like posted a VOD, and that was it.
Was there any
And
controversy for cheating?
there was a ton. Yeah,
Oh
it
my
got
gosh.
posted on Reddit, and like very prominent members of the Super Mario World community, both the task community and RTA community, are both calling it out as like, we don't have any idea what this is. There's like, nobody's verified this.
We don't like change.
Like, this almost certainly isn't real. It's like maybe it's an emulation issue or something, but it's like none of this makes any sense, and like it doesn't make any sense that this would cause a credits warp.
Now, credits warp was also somewhat new in that around that area for RTA players, right? I don't even think Mario 3's was established at that point either.
Yeah.
So it was kind of new to see this whole like beat the game in like 2 seconds kind of thing, right?
Yeah. And so yeah, there was a lot of controversy, and a lot of people didn't believe that it was real. It turns out that it was, obviously, and a couple months or following up on that video, some of the task community members asked him how it worked, and he explained it to them, and they like made a task that sort of like went through the same route. But the thing about that is that nobody in the RTA community, none of the like real-time human speedrunners knew that the testers had verified it, and none of the testers thought that the execution was like humanly possible.
Of course.
It
That's how it
seemed
always
hard.
starts, right?
And so there was this whole disconnect where one community knew it was possible but didn't think it was like really humanly possible, and the other community just didn't know it was possible at all. This was before we were all together in a Discord.
Do you have a memory of year? Do you know?
Yeah, this was this was late 2014.
Okay.
And I know that because I went to my first AGDQ at AGDQ 2015, and I started talking with Dram55. Dram55 was the only member of the RTA community who knew that the testers had verified Jeff W's route. And so we got to talking about this route because you talk about speedrunning things when you're at a speedrunning convention. And he brought up like, yeah, I know that it's legit. The testers have verified it. And so once I heard that, I was very intrigued, and I found the sample task that they came up with, and I looked into the description of how it worked, and I said to myself, I think this is possible. I think I can do it. And all the other part of that is just that like I have a very technical understanding of computers, and I have a degree in computer science, right? I sort of understand how computers work.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I was able to look at it and say, yeah, I think so. And nobody else had really like stepped up. I mean,
single frame inputs and stuff like that, they're not impossible, right? I mean, a lot of people think...
It's not even single frame inputs. It's mostly pixel perfect, which is actually a lot easier in most cases.
I think pixel perfect's easier than frame perfect, in my opinion.
And so So actually, on my way home, on the flight home. Oh, here we go. Here's the lead up to the actual warp, and my reaction. Pay attention to my reaction because I did not think it was possible for this to work, and it was just.
Oh, look at him. Yeah,
Yeah,
there you are. Nice, man.
I couldn't believe it. I was stunned.
Okay, let's give it a quick pause for a sec.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm paused at 6:17. So like, how did you like feel at that time? So you said during the whole process, you're like, I'm not gonna get it, but you know, it's that grind, right? You keep trying, you keep resetting,
Yeah. Yeah.
resetting all the time, and there was no expectation either because it wasn't deemed possible at that time
Yeah.
on console.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have done it if I didn't think it was possible. I thought it was possible, but it wasn't verified, and it involves some aspects of the Super Nintendo that do get actually emulated incorrectly a lot of the time. Like the Wii U Virtual Console does not emulate the Super Nintendo well enough.
No,
to
neither for Nintendo.
Yeah, and so you can't do it on like Virtual Console. So it was something that I thought was possible because I thought the emulators were accurate enough. But then also like I thought I had a pixel that wasn't good, and I'll go into that in the next time we go through the run. But yeah, it was very surprising, and I just had this rush, like
Right?
it just like worked. It worked, and I'm sure you felt that before. And
Oh, of course. With Mario 3, when that was
crazy.
established, we kind of had the same. I don't know for Mario 3 if it was deemed like not humanly possible, but as soon as I saw that people were doing pixel perfect and a couple single frame stuff, it was like, well, there's no way no one's ever gonna do it, right? Through the entire existence. Eventually it's gonna happen. So
Yeah.
let's start the video back up again at 3, 2, 1, go.
So I was flying home from AGDQ, memorizing a bunch of pixels. Like I had like written down some notes. I was so excited about this. Oh crap, no, we're good. Okay, it's the next run. I was so excited about it, and so that, and then you know, a couple of weeks later, I actually talked to Jeff W. This was a few months after he'd done his run and been, you know, kind of shouted out over by the community.
Yeah.
But I talked to him and he helped me out through it, and that was actually super useful too. I learned some things I wouldn't have been able to finish runs without. So then a couple of weeks later, I learned enough and I practiced enough that I got the run that you saw. Now that run was 6 minutes ish, somewhere around 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Whereas Jeff W had a time of like 4:59. So I had the sort of like console world record, which isn't a real world record. But it's sort of like when I verified it on console, I sort of like legitimized his run. Okay, so
now you're starting to strategize here.
Right. So this run was the first run where I actually took the world record.
Cool.
So I want to talk about what's going on. First of all, I got the midway point, and I'm getting a bunch of berries. And when you eat 10 berries in Super Mario World, you get a mushroom. And so if you're Big Mario, you get a mushroom. You get a mushroom in your reserve box. And so the whole point of going through the level that first time was just to get a mushroom in my reserve box.
Okay, cool. I was like, why did he even die in the first place? But okay,
that was not an accidental fall into the pit there. And okay, so you need that mushroom for later. It's because you need to set the Y coordinate of a certain sprite. And it's just like to make the whole thing work and to make it like safe. So here, this is something you saw me mess up a bunch of times in the previous run.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to grab a throw block and a P switch at the same time.
Okay, definitely.
There's sort of like a 50% chance of that failing, and it was like very comical how many times it failed in the previous run.
I mean, this is a hard trick though, right? You got a second try there.
Yeah, it's just 50%. There's no, it's not hard. It's just
sub-pixels
working. No, I think it's like frame rules.
Okay.
There's like every other frame. There's an interaction.
Okay.
So the reason you have to do that is to get the P switch. You like create 2 P switches so that one of the P switches will load into a certain sprite slot. Super Mario World has 12 sprite slots, and they're really important to how all of this stuff works because just like the layout of memory is really important. But basically, there's 12 different sprites that can be on screen at a time, and they're all stored in sort of like bits of memory that are right next to each other. And so sometimes I need, and the game always picks basically the highest available sprite slot to like when it loads a new sprite. And a sprite is something like a shell or a mole or a throw block or a mushroom.
Yep.
And so there I use the mushroom at the same time as the vine to get 2 Y coordinates, both for the vine and the mushroom. And then Okay, we need to go back actually a little bit
Sure, sure.
because this is really important. This
Yep.
is like
I'm gonna
super
go back
important. So I'm gonna
to
let's
the
go to.
vine.
All right.
Well, you're shell juggling. Do you want to go there?
Let's just tell me what timestamp you're at.
I am at 8:58 in the actual video. 2:17.
Okay. Okay. Ready, set, go. Okay. So the throw block is important because I have to despawn, or I basically have to despawn the like particles when it breaks at specific y coordinates. And so I have to put the throw block on the ground at a certain spot, and then throw the shell at it, and then scroll this like
Yep, I
the
see
throw
it.
block
Scroll
off
the screen. Yep.
so that those go off screen at certain y coordinates. Now, the really frustrating thing about that is there's like 4 different patterns in which those blocks can break,
Oh my
and
goodness.
only one of those 4 patterns works. So there's like a 25% chance of it actually working. And you have to scroll while these like it's not frame perfect, but it's hard. I have to
Yeah.
put that P switch in a certain spot as well.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these like things that I'm doing, very specific like x coordinates. The reason for that is that we're like manipulating a crash, and so normally a processor is just like constantly looking for instructions of what to do, right?
Yeah.
And normally it's reading those instructions from the cartridge. During a crash, it can start reading instructions from other places. The processor has no protection from reading instructions from RAM, or there's other places it can get instructions from. Normally it doesn't, though, because it's always the ROM, keeps sending it to places to read instructions from that are within the ROM.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what arbitrary code execution is all about. It's crashing the game in a way that you can actually control what code it runs.
Yeah, and I mean, you apply the same thing with Mario 3 as well.
Exactly.
Although I think the glitch in Mario 3 is a lot easier. For some reason, there's
simpler,
just a random door in the middle of nowhere for some reason.
So like the P switch, the vine, the mushroom, those are all the throw block particle despawns.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all like bits of memory that I need to have be at specific values in order for that crash to get guided in just the right way. And where it ends up going is we tell the processor, we end up manipulating all these things to tell the processor to execute the shell x coordinates. All these shells that I've been stomping on,
yeah,
putting in pixel perfect spots and stomping on, those all have to be at specific x coordinates, and they're one after another in memory.
So you have to do them in a perfect sequence. Like they have to be in a certain spot before you go to the next. Yeah. So you can't start like later on a different shell in a different spot. You have to do it.
And it's a series of like 7 bytes or so.
Okay, I just paused it at 4:53.
Yeah. Okay. And so those shells are like a sequence of code. That the x coordinates of those shells are a sequence of code that they do a couple things. That it puts the game into credits mode. That's one thing. So there's like a memory location that says what game mode is it in, and we changed it from normal gameplay to credits mode. And there's actually a few different credits modes, and so depending on which credits mode you set it to, you can jump to different places in the credits. And so you'll see actually different versions of the credits warp actually jump to different places.
we've seen like there's one that takes you right to the Yoshi house too, right?
Yeah, I think this one didn't have that property, right? This one had like the glitchy weird like stuff scrolling to the side
scrolling, and then it took you to these credits.
This is actually the second screen of the like the part of credits that says what all the enemies are.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so you set the game mode to credits, and then you also have to like fix the call stack, and that's just like a programming thing. But basically the game when it crashes, it gets into a bad state, and you need to fix this game state in order for the game to sort of resume and for the game code to be able to continue doing what it needs to do.
So it actually doesn't crash and just black screen, right?
And so you have to do a couple things, and that's why it takes so many bytes of code. In Super Mario Brothers 3, you only have to do, I think, 3 shells, right?
Well, when it first started, like if we were in the state like you're at there now, there was a lot of like up and down through the level, getting a lot of X and Ys. But at the point it's at now, 3 shells.
Yeah, 3 shells are all you need. Yeah, and so because you don't have to fix all the like game state.
Mm-hmm.
And so that takes more shells because of that.
Mario 3, for anyone out there wondering about the Mario 3 wrong warp, it's way less complicated than this.
Yeah, and the reason the main reason it's way less complicated is because when you crash the game by, you know, glitching into that pipe and touching the block that you're not supposed to be able to touch. When you crash the game that way, it kind of just goes straight to the shell, like the sprite X coordinate table, and starts executing instructions from there. We have to do a lot more memory manipulation to get it sort of like craft the path that the processor takes through memory and get it to jump to the right part of memory to actually execute those. And that was the genius of what Jeff W356 found out. He figured out how to do that.
Yeah.
And at this point now I understand how to go about doing that, but at that time it was sort of a mystery how the hell he figured that out.
Right.
We'll talk about more about how you go about figuring that out later.
Okay, so let's dwell in a little bit more. I'm gonna go ahead and press play. 3, 2, 1, go. So I'm at 4:55 as it's going, and so we're gonna dip into you forgot to split here, but I mean that's okay. So what? Yeah. Do you remember the exact time of this run?
It was 4:55.
4:55. Okay, so then
that was the first world record that I think ever had in any game.
Here it is, the blue shirt, guys. You know this run's gonna be it.
So at this point, once I started doing this, a lot of other runners started getting interested in it because it was a totally new category for Super Mario World. We actually ended up splitting what was called any %. That became 11 exit, and this became 0 exit. Although I still prefer to call it credits warp.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. Credits warp.
So other people started working on it. Carl Sagan 42, Dots Are Cool, Dram 55, P4+2, Nathan is Bored. All these people helped contribute a bunch of stuff. And so this was a new strategy that we figured out. Remember when I had to break that throw block and scroll the particles off screen?
Yeah.
Well, the way that we did that involved a bunch of like juggling shells just to like get both a shell and a throw block in the same part of the level.
At any point, let me know if you want to pause. Just say pause, and I've got my cursor over the pause.
Okay. And so it's like took a long time to get the throw block and the shell in the same place and at a like high enough Y coordinate to despawn those particles at the right Y coordinate. And so Dram figured out, and then I figured out a good setup for how to use this P switch here at the end.
First try. And
we still have to do this thing with like getting a second P switch and the block and the throw block and the P switch, grabbing them at the same time. But it's a much faster place here to destroy that throw block and despawn the particles. And so this saved a lot of time. I don't remember what the exact time ends up being.
There you go, right there.
3 something.
Yeah, having that yellow block there. If anyone hasn't noticed, though, he hasn't died and he doesn't have a mushroom.
That's right. And that is... I don't actually remember why I didn't have to do the mushroom and vine anymore. I think it's... The mushroom and vine were actually sort of like a safety strat. It's because those Y coordinates of those might get executed just because the sprite Y coordinate table is right before the sprite X coordinate table, and it's possible to jump just before the sprite X coordinate table. And so if you did that, you would jump to the end of the sprite Y coordinate table, and so you wanted that code to like kind of do nothing and not like do something that would end up crashing the game.
Yeah.
And so we got some safe values out of the vine and the mushroom by doing the trick that I did, but it wasn't strictly necessary.
So some people might ask, when you do the slow hops on all those turtles, you're not actually specifically putting them in place. You're just stopping them so then you can move their shells and control them. That's right.
Yeah, okay. I'm just trying to get them all so that they're not walking around and running into me as I maneuver them. Actually, I remember now why it wasn't necessary. It's because we figured out that you could spit out the shell with Yoshi, and in fact this is something that we still hadn't really figured out, is that it's much faster to do this whole section by spitting out all the shells with Yoshi rather than stomping them. Like
so you can spit them out on the proper...
This run probably would have been like 15 seconds faster if we had like realized that at the time. But yeah, by spitting out the last shell with Yoshi, for some reason we did it with the last shell but not the other. I don't know.
It's so weird how... I know, man. Trust me, I know. Like even in Mario 3, we used to like go to the top of the level and come back. It's pointless.
Yeah, you get a good Y coordinate there, and you don't need the mushroom or the vine to have, because you just those Y coordinates just aren't going to matter, is why. And there we go. There's credits again. Now this warps into a different place in credits.
Okay, I just paused at 15:21 in the video.
Okay. Okay. And so this warps into a little bit earlier spot in the credits. This is actually the earliest that you can warp into easily by just writing a single value to the game mode.
Yeah.
You can warp earlier in the credits if you write 2 values, if you basically both modify the game mode and also like a cutscene value, which is what the task does.
Yeah.
but it's like you can't really fit it in just the shells. With the way we're doing it with the shells, you can't really do it that way.
Do you have any controversy in the actual speedrun right now about which cutscene triggers which and like which could be faster?
By now, especially since the very first credits warp was pretty late in the credits anyway, there's not really any controversy over it anymore. When this first came out, people were like there were some people who really disagreed with this being like a successful completion of the game, because it like skips the entire staff credits. There's no like actual credits. The rationale that I use and that I like is that it does get to the screen that says the end, and that's kind of the ultimate decider of whether or not you're in the credits. But it's debatable.
Now, does this game have once you get to the end, can you press start and start the game over again?
No. The game
there you go.
freezes.
That's your answer right there.
Yeah.
That's your answer right there.
So it was for sure very controversial. The fact that I called this the any % world record at the time, I had a lot of people very mad at me. There were people like making up stories about me on Twitter, like of horrible things that I had done or something like that. But
of course,
now it's all cooled down and people just love it. Like it's just like a really cool technical category.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff like that at first it's nobody knows really what to call these things or you know how to interpret it for runs and stuff like that. I mean, we never expected anything like that, right? And everyone looks to the highest runners to really make everything set, right?
Yeah, but so, I feel like I had a lot of support from the like people who were actively running the game.
Exactly.
It was sort of more like the people kind of watching from the outskirts, the people who maybe in other games or whatever that were, I don't know, they were just mad. Some of them. I got a lot of support too.
I feel like this is where this takes a big turn though. So I'm gonna go ahead and press play in 3, 2, 1, go. And I feel like this is where the run really takes a leap. Because you're now changing it from mere minutes instead of a couple minutes here, right? Like
so I went on a cruise. Oh, here we go. Okay, there was actually another route in between these two.
I didn't know. No, but we can explain it. Hold on, I can pause it right here at 11 seconds, and you can quickly explain it.
Yeah, so there was another route that actually was. Oh, I feel like we should show it. I'm gonna look up the video.
Okay, yeah, we can get it up.
Crap. So it was like I had like a 146. So let me look this up. But it was hard. It was very hard. Man,
yeah, because there was a big gap, right? In the
Here we go.
Get it up. Cube. Like.
Oh shoot, this isn't mine. But I'm gonna link you the old world record by Carl Sagan. Okay.
Okay, sure. And
just because it's the same route, his run is better than mine by like 5 seconds. But
it's good to touch base on, sure.
And it was hard. Okay, so I'm at the beginning of the video.
Okay, let me take a look here. Let me get it up on YouTube here. I think I have. Hold on, let me do that.
Oh right, you have to get it on the stream too.
Yeah, I think I can switch to this. No. Oh, because I already have a Chrome video up. This is gonna be annoying.
Okay. Well.
Damn you, Carl.
I can just describe it and I can link it in the chat too, if.
Yeah. No, well, keep talking. I'll set it up right now. I'll set it up.
Basically,
keep
I went on a cruise, and when I came back, like the whole run was way different, and they'd cut off like a minute and a half from the time, and and so the trick that they found was instead of using a throw block to create those particles, the exact same particles come when you spin jump on like a yellow turn block, which kind of like happened to be
kind of like what you did a little bit before, though, right?
It's well, I mean, it creates the same particles. What do you mean?
Like in the previous run before, near the P-switch block, you did the spin jumps on the yellow blocks. I mean, that's not what your purpose was, but that's what you're trying to say. Like that's you were applying
you got
that
it up,
same.
So it looks like we can watch this.
Yep, definitely. So I got it at the very beginning. 3, 2, 1, go.
And it looks like it starts with a failed attempt there. So
Carl.
Yeah, so the route is it actually became very different. We actually started using there's a charge and chuck at the end of the level,
Mm-hmm.
which we started using instead of there's a charge and chuck in the middle of the level. I guess I haven't explained the item swap. The item swap that actually causes the crash. I'll explain that real quick. Actually, I can do that in a few seconds we have here. So the item swap is when
See
you
how
have
complicated
Yoshi,
this is, guys?
when you have Yoshi, and he gets a coin on his tongue, like he gets a coin stuck to his tongue. He has like a pointer. The code for Yoshi has a pointer to the like memory that's holding that sprite, the coin. And then if you collect that coin before Yoshi finishes eating it, and then load a charge and chuck into the same bit of memory that's been freed up where that coin used to be, it's called the item swap, and it lets you eat a charge and chuck, which you are normally not allowed to do, and that's what crashes the game.
You apply that same concept with the cloud though, right? As well.
Yeah, it's the same thing. In the cloud, you're just trying to prevent the crash, whereas with the credit swap, you're doing a bunch of stuff to manipulate the crash and like kind of working for you, which is a lot harder.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
But so you could see Carl did the same thing with sort of the shells.
He was shooting them
all
instead
the berries.
of stomping them. Yep.
Yeah, he's eating all the berries. Actually, because in this route, you used a mushroom instead of a moving coin as part of the item swap.
Okay.
So you would get the mushroom on Yoshi's tongue, and then load a charge and chuck before he finishes eating the mushroom. And you also had to get hit by the charge and chuck while it was doing his thing. Okay, so this is the hard part. So he's sort of just like clearing out some blocks there, and then he's going to place that P switch because that's still part of the route.
Yep.
But now this spin jump is super precise. Still has the 1 in 4 chance of getting the right like particle pattern, and so you had a 1 in 4 chance, and then you had like a trick. It was like you had like to switch from right to left for just like 2 frames and then press right again. It's sort of like the flagpole glitch, I think, in difficulty. From what I've heard.
Yeah.
Really hard.
So that last spin jump, when he loaded the yellow blocks, he went on spin jump. He just kind of went for it, right?
Yeah,
which is essentially what you have to do.
The crazy thing is you can't scroll the screen to get you can't. Before we would scroll the screen to just move all the particles off screen while they were frozen. You can't do that for this one. You have to scroll the screen and then like get them off screen by just moving to the right far enough. And so that's what made it so hard.
But I mean, see, the thing is with short speedruns like this, it's not that bad of an idea to go for those quick, risky strats, right? I mean, it's a couple minutes.
Yeah, at the same time, though, it's super demoralizing to spend 8 hours and like, get one warp to credits, you know, and it was a bad time.
Yeah, and even might not even be a good time because after a couple hours you start playing worse, right? You start being sloppy sometimes. And
then Pangea Panga actually came up with a different route that it's almost the exact same as this, except instead of using turn blocks, he used the like sparkles of coins, and it was this insane route that was just like insanely hard to do. He was the only one who ever did it, and he held world record for like a year with that one.
Holy crap!
But same general route as this.
Is this one coming up right here?
No.
Or as Carl's?
That was Panga. That was Pangea Panga.
Oh, okay. I thought you were referring Panga's route to the route we're about to see now, but you're referring to the route that
it was
Carl
the same
did.
route as the one Carl, that we just saw from Carl Sagan, 42. Yeah, so that one stood for a year, and the next route you're about to see was the first route that I developed all on my own.
Ooh,
and
SethBling Incorporated.
I had a little bit of help from P4 Plus too, but the vast majority of the work and the research was done by me.
Yeah.
So I'm at 1544 in the video. Is that where you are?
Sure. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay. So this route is called the Rolex route, and it stands for RLX because you have to be holding both shoulder pads, R and L, and the X button all at the same time during the item swap at the end. It's a lot faster. First, you have to duplicate this Yoshi block. Boom. Oh, by the way, the Rolex thing is also used in 11 Exit for Cloud.
Okay.
So you have to duplicate this Yoshi block. You have to despawn the shell fragments from that Yoshi block at certain velocities. Then you do this like shell coding shell coding thing. We finally figured out to use Yoshi for all this, which also you saw Carl Sagan do.
Yeah.
Which is, as you can see, a lot faster than throwing the shells up, right?
And then stomping on them, yeah.
Yeah. That shell I just like kind of had to get out of the way. That wasn't pixel perfect.
Okay.
This one is also not pixel perfect. I had to. I had to like do a like turn around, and then I had to get a white splat to appear at a very specific X coordinate on screen. And then it just
referring to that splat, yeah.
and then it goes straight to an item swap on screen. Why don't we watch that run again?
Sure, let's do it again. Yeah.
All right.
I'm gonna go back.
Yeah. To 1542.
Okay. Okay, I'm there.
Okay.
It's already started.
Yeah, okay. So once again, there's like a bunch of things I have to do. I have to get a duplicate Yoshi blocks.
Mm-hmm.
I have to then despawn Yoshi eggshell particle fragments at specific Y velocities, vertical velocities.
So we're gonna see
And
that right here.
Yeah, there's a setup for that, and it basically involves just like walking to the right pixel, walking to the correct pixel while the eggshell is breaking.
Yeah.
If you overshoot or undershoot, it's shot. You have to restart. We have actually a much safer setup for that nowadays. Then I do the shell coding.
I've seen it yet.
And then I need two graphics to appear at specific X coordinates on the screen. One is the Mario holding a shell and facing the screen, which happens when he like is holding a shell and turns around, basically. Mm-hmm. And so I grab a shell and I do that. And then the other is the white splat whenever you kick a shell.
Right there.
And so that is right there.
And you use the background, right? Visual cues of the background.
I don't use the background. I use the grass that's underneath Mario.
Okay.
There's like a repeating pattern, and you can kind of see which pixel you're on. And it is pixel perfect, all of those things.
Boom.
And then there's the item swap. Oh yeah, and during the item swap, it's possible to like bonk on the chuck as he like gets reeled in by Yoshi. And if you bonk on the chuck, it'll create a white splat, and that ruins it. So that makes it hard too.
Oh yeah. So I mean, the item swap sounds awesome and everything, but it can really screw you over a lot of times. Like you could have done all that perfectly, but the item swap you could have screwed up.
Yeah. So fast forward another year, Furious has held the world record for almost exactly 1 year.
Woo, Furious,
and I came up with another new route, and that's what we're about to see here. This is all like from here on is within the last 2 weeks.
Is this still? I'm paused by the way. Is this still? Oh. Do you still call this like the Rolex route?
It does still use the Rolex. You have to hold RL and X at the end. But it's like to disambiguate it from the other route. Mm-hmm. I've been calling it the no shellcode route. And the reason for that is we don't use the shells anymore. I mean, we use a shell to do like the white splat and the turnaround thing.
All right, this should be.
And also for the block duplication.
Okay, so I'm at 1702 in the video.
All right, give me a sec.
Sure.
Okay.
This is insane. Like the generations of how it goes. I mean, everyone's had like a chunk of this and taken a piece off, which is it's fantastic. All right, 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so the trick to this.
Blue shirt again, guys.
Blue shirt. It's the same. The trick to this one is instead of executing those 6 or 7 bytes of code from the sprite X coordinate table. Mm-hmm. Instead of doing that, we execute some code from the joypad auto read registers. What that means is there's a little portion of RAM, it's 8 bytes long, that stores which buttons are currently being pressed on up to 4 controllers.
Insane.
And these 8 bytes, 2 of them we use for the main controller, and we can't really use those. So there's 6 bytes left over. And the only way to have that many controllers plugged in is you have to have multi-taps. There's 2 multi-taps. Each multi-tap has 2 controllers plugged in, and those controllers have buttons held down with spring clamps and binder clips. Okay? And the buttons that they have held down form a binary pattern that basically just sets a bunch those 6 bytes to specific values. And so it runs 6 bytes of code, and those 6 bytes of code happen to be enough to warp to credits.
That is crazy.
And so it totally cuts out the shells.
Keep going. I'm gonna be backtracking during just this run here. I'll keep backtracking. Keep going.
Okay, and so it just totally removes the need for the shells anymore. We still have to do again those graphical things.
What about that first shell? You run in and you jump on like the middle shell and then you go away. Is that pixel perfect?
That is not pixel perfect. The point of doing that is I unload the shell that's on the ground. I load a Koopa into the sprite slot that was occupied by that shell, and then I reload the shell on the ground into sprite slot 0, which is the lowest possible sprite slot. Okay. So you have to have enough sprites on screen when you load that shell. Yeah, that's basically what it is. Mm-hmm. And so that's the one shell that you have to program with. It's not really used for code. It's used to kind of get the crash to execute code from the right places, which in this case is the controllers.
Yeah, because that's what you were explaining during the first playthrough.
Yeah.
Now, are you still doing the Y velocity of the shell fragments?
Yeah, so that's still
Okay.
part of it.
Okay.
The white splat, the turning around while holding a shell, those are all
Okay.
still part of it.
The white
There's
splat you're
one.
doing now, though, is in a different spot. It's not back at the beginning first shell, which you used before. It's right by the Yoshi now.
It's in a different spot on the level, but what actually matters is the location on screen.
Okay. That's why you're
So
still
it's
in the same spot
yeah.
on the screen, just in a
Yeah,
different
and that's
section of the
why
level.
I scroll right. You'll see me scroll the screen all the way right before doing those things.
So you're still in the
uh,
same spot. So
so
is
that
it
it's
the
on.
Yoshi
Yeah.
fragments for Yoshi himself and the one-up egg, or just
No,
the one-up egg?
it's just the one up egg actually. Those fragments like use the same memory as the memory that was used for the Yoshi eggshell. So it's
Oh.
whatever the last value was. Those just sort of like stick around in memory. They never get cleared out,
Okay.
even though they the fragments go away. But
Yep.
whatever was last in memory there is what really matters once we get to that item swap and the crash happens. And so yeah, it's just the one up that matters.
So how come you wait for the coin? Is it because where the flame hit it, you were unable to reach it, or?
So there's like a very specific like series of things that has to happen in a very specific order, and there is a like crazy requirement which I haven't mentioned yet. Okay, so again, I have to wait for the coin. You can actually do it faster than that, and in the next couple of runs, you'll see me do it faster and not wait quite so long.
Mhm.
But you do need to wait for it a little bit so that it'll get on Yoshi's tongue, and also so that you have enough time to go collect the coin. And then also you have to load the charge and chuck.
Yeah.
So you have to basically there's like a line that you cross where if you go right of that line, you'll be far enough to the right that the charge and chuck loads. And
Basic spawning, right? Basic spawning.
And the requirement I haven't told you yet, though, is that Mario has to be on a specific X coordinate.
That's what makes the whole thing work,
Yeah.
right? The item
Yeah.
swap. That's why it can
So
be really janky.
It actually like it was very close to not requiring that. It's just like the bit of code that we have to run from. So the controllers. Again, remember I have 6 bytes of codes in the controllers.
Yep.
What that does, what the 6 bytes of code does, is actually broken up into 2 instructions. One instruction jumps into some code that's on the game cartridge. It kind of jumps into it mid function, a place that you wouldn't normally jump into it, and it runs that until the end of the function, and then returns back to the controllers. So it like runs a little chunk of code from ROM, and then runs the other instruction from the controllers. And then the second bit of code from the controllers jumps to a different place, also in ROM, also mid-function. And it just so happens that the first place that you jump takes Mario's X coordinate and subtracts 10, I think, or adds 10 or something. It adds 10 to Mario's X coordinate and stores that to a RAM address. And then the second place that you jump reads that value from that RAM address and uses it to determine the game mode.
Insane.
And so if Mario's X coordinate is off by 1 either direction, 1 or more in either direction, it won't get read the second time you jump into the code in ROM. It just won't have the right value, and you won't get the right game mode.
Yeah.
And it'll just crash.
The crash
or actually,
will be
it's kind of funny. It doesn't necessarily crash. If you're 1 pixel too far left, it actually freezes for a moment and then goes to the title screen. If you're 3 pixels too far left, instead of fading out and warping to credits, it fades out at like half speed and then just stays black forever. And so I've actually been tricked into thinking I had a world record.
Oh yeah, because you're waiting.
Fading out. Because normally when it fades out, I'm like, oh yes, I got a world record, or I got a warp. But it can actually just fade out slowly, and you're just like, oh god, this is not a real warp, is it?
It's strange how that works. I just want to stop you there for a sec, because it's really strange. As soon as you mentioned it goes back to the beginning of the game, you can do the same thing in Mario 3 and in Mega Man 1. where you do the arbitrary code execute, and it just takes you right back to the menu screen. Just boom, that's it. And it's so there's not only just the option of it taking you to the end or crashing. It can take you all over the place, right?
Yeah.
And that's
With this one, the way it works, like those are really the only 2 options other than crashing. So
okay,
that's funny for those.
In Mario 3, man, it can take you to like World 8, some weird pipe, and then you can. It's so many places. It's crazy.
But it's like horrible that you have to like be on a specific X coordinate while you're doing this very complicated item swap glitch, right?
Yeah.
You're jumping off Yoshi and collecting a coin and loading a like there's a lot of things to even just get the item swap to work in the first place.
At this point, do you think you're very good at the item swap now? Like it's not that hard for you, right?
Just doing the item swap is pretty easy.
Yeah.
But like doing it with whatever requirements there are for whatever category, the cloud uses the item swap. There's a couple different credit swap categories or routes that we've used. I'm actually working on a kill Bowser route right now, where instead of warping to the credits, you warp to the Bowser fight and kill Bowser. Since some people might not consider credits warp, a true completion, and so there's this other. Like,
so you're
Bowser
fine.
thing.
All right. We'll kill Bowser, okay, guys?
Right, exactly. And so I'm working on that right now. Actually, I think I have some route that's around maybe 3 minutes, and I'm going to be working on actually doing runs of that probably in the next couple of days.
Good. That'll be really cool.
That has sort of like a different requirements for the item swap. It's more similar to 11 exit.
Will it be less or more complicated than this whole process?
It's more complicated in terms of the number of RAM addresses that you have to manipulate.
Of course.
But it's a lot easier because you don't have that requirement at the end of Mario's X coordinate.
Right on. Okay, so I am at 1817 in the video, and this is
1817.
This is another historical run semi because you're going to be the first to break 50 seconds, right?
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
All right, 3, 2, 1, go. Now this is somewhat the same though, right? Kind of.
It's the same route. All these, this one and the next one, they're all the same like general route. This is based on the work that I did. The big difference here in this one is going to be at the beginning. Instead of doing that thing where I bounce on the shell and come back left and then go back to the right, there's like this weird thing where you can scroll the screen at the beginning and then kind of turn around. You load a Koopa, naked Koopa, and then the last shell is actually in the correct sprite slot. And then everything else from there on is the same. And so that saves a little bit of time and also just had much better execution. You can see I'm not like... There's all these pixel perfect things and I'm just getting them right on the first try.
Yeah,
or that one I didn't, but...
When I first watched this, I was like, so why did he stand at the start? For anyone who doesn't know, he actually scrolled the screen. You don't hear it, unfortunately, because we're talking, but it's the same.
Yeah.
Yes!
Yeah, and I was excited because that was the first sub 50.
Exactly.
Which is a cool milestone. I mean, a sub 1 minute is obviously a cooler milestone. But do you want to just go right into the next run here?
I'm replaying that run again.
Okay.
So people can get a good look at that intro because I think you don't use that again now. I think that's over, isn't it?
Yeah, we figured out a new beginning of the level 2. That one was kind of hard to execute because you needed to sort of like
you're like back fading.
Yeah,
right.
You needed to turn around with a very quick tap left. Like the longer you hold left, if you hold it for a few frames, you'll like lose almost all your velocity.
Yeah.
But yeah, then there's a bunch of pixel perfect things that also went really well in that run.
So is the 2,185 attempts just for this sequence, or is that just how your splits are?
I think that's for all credit swap runs. I think I've had the same splits file for
cool.
all of my credit swap runs.
Right on. So now I'm at, hold on, I'll pause it at 9:19 and then.
Okay.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
All right. So then this is the current world record. There's a couple of runners maybe doing. Okay, Furious is in the chat, so he didn't get a world record. So this is the current world record.
Yay!
Aaron is also Area 51 is also trying. He's the current world record holder for 11 exit.
He's trying as well, yeah.
But they haven't taken me down. This is the current world record. The big improvement is at the beginning here. We figured out dots are cool, and Amarati Kondo figured out a way to do it where you can just grab the shell from the very beginning and you just have to land on a Koopa the right way. And it's not quite frame perfect. It's actually, there's a 2 or 3 frame window.
Oh, thank God, finally.
But everything else is the same, but that's quite a bit faster. It lets you do there's actually only like 2 pixel perfect things that you need to, like
the panic split. I love it.
Yeah,
that was
I
fantastic.
split pretty late on that. I just wasn't expecting it to work.
Of course. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's just I love dude, I'm guilty of the panic splits. Yeah. I understand.
The whole thing just has such a low chance of working because of that thing at the end where it just has to be perfect.
Which
And
I mean, you guys make it look really easy, and the average person can be like, well, why is it so hard for like everyone to
yeah.
like beat your record? And I mean, that's why, right? Because there's just
Oh,
so much crap that needs to.
okay. Furious is saying in your chat that that he and Amrati Kondo came up with the strat, although it is like very similar to one Dots are Cool came up with as
Yeah,
well. So I
trying
guess
to
they sort
trying
of
to properly
independently
credit everyone. It's all good. I
sort of
get it.
independently figured it out.
We love you, Furious. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, the beginning of this run, the big difference is you have to like land on a walking Koopa while he's on a specific pixel. So he's like walking at a pixel every 2 frames, and so that's why there's like a 2 to 3 frame window,
Right there.
just depending on how the execution works
So
out.
so I paused it there. I don't know if you're still watching the stream,
Yeah,
but on the video right there is
yeah,
essentially.
yeah. And then
So
and then
at
when you
this
hit
point,
that Koopa out,
At this point,
he
we've
lands
gotten
on
rid
the
of the turn block. We've gotten rid of the P switch. We don't do the yellow turn blocks anymore. There has nothing to do with any chuck. There's no mushroom in the inventory. There's no subsections. There's no death. There's no white
Yeah.
splat. Does this one still rely on...
There is a white splat. There's still white splat, and there's still turnaround.
Okay,
those are
the white splat.
Those are like the 2 additional things, and there's also the requirement for something in sprite slot 0 to be a certain X coordinate.
Yeah. So the splat
there's-
and the shell, or the egg,
Yeah.
the egg fragments, right? Those are still the...
Yeah, and the egg fragments, right? Yeah.
Right there. Okay.
And the duplicated Yoshi block. That's actually required too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
None of that stuff's hard for you anymore, though, right? That's all. That's all jokes.
Not compared to the item swap at the end.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
we'll let all your videos roll.
Okay.
So people have stuff, and if there's anyone in chat who has any very specific questions for Seth, now would be a good time for you guys to kind of spam some of your questions while we're talking, if you want him to answer any of that stuff. But is there anything that you would like to say about anything?
Well,
Just before we get started into like any Q&As.
I know that like you like in these interviews you really like the interviewees to talk about questions that get asked a lot.
Of course.
And the,
So
the question that gets asked the most is this a good time to?
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead.
That? The question that you ask the most is how does anyone find this? Right? How do people figure this out? Because there's so much like crap going on. Like it just seems so esoteric, and it honestly it is, right? Like like eggshells Y velocity despawns. Who tried that by trial and error and just like figured out? Oh yeah, if you right. And of course the answer is not. There's no trial and error. There is trial and error, but it's not the like the kind of trial and error where you just like try a bunch of things and see if it works at credit.
Yeah.
So there's like a bunch of tools that I use, and they all sort of, by using all these tools together, I can get a picture of what's going on to the point where I can start to manipulate how this stuff, when a crash happens, how the processor figures out what to do and get it to execute code that I want it to execute.
Yeah.
And so some of these tools, probably one of the biggest is called trace logging. And so a trace logger is a feature of an emulator. I use BizHawk mostly. It logs every single processor instruction that the processor executes during emulation. And that's like hundreds of thousands or millions. Yeah, it's really millions of processor instructions. And it just logs them all to a text file. And by doing that, I can see, like, for instance, when the charge and chuck crash happened, I can see exactly, what, like where the processor started executing code from and what the state of the processor was at that. And I can even like figure out what was in RAM at the time and how the values in RAM caused that to cause the processor to, do certain things after that crash. So the trace log is super useful. I use it all the time while I'm like experimenting to just see, like, I tried this memory, like modifying this memory value and just like have it crash again.
Yeah.
A lot of the times I'll make a task actually to try out all these things so that I can keep replaying the same set of inputs. But I like make the task and then I actually modify RAM addresses in the emulator and like see how that modifies the trace log. See what changes that causes in the.
Do you think we have tassers to thank for stuff like this? I mean, the correlation between tassing and just crashing in general, right? Not many people would try and use crashes to benefit, which is insane.
Yeah, it's tassers and it's also to a large degree ROM hackers. Super Mario World has one of the biggest ROM hacking communities.
Oh, easily.
And it's the reason that both the code and also all the RAM addresses are so well documented. You can
Yeah.
like read a disassembly of the game that's like actually pretty readable, somewhat readable, and it like tells you like what all the RAM addresses are that are being used and modified and read and written and all that. And then there's also a really good RAM map that I refer to. If you just Google SMW RAM map, and there's
Yeah,
a
isn't there a website? It's called like, it's like a
SMW
wiki.
Central.
Yeah, SMW Central. That will have
Yeah.
everything. But I think there's also a wiki for other games if you were interested. I think it's something like Crystal. It's like a wiki Crystal or something. I can't remember. But
Not
yeah,
sure. I always use the
SMW
SMW
Central.
wiki for that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And so like there's just like a lot of documentation that I thankfully don't have to like figure all these things out for myself. Now some of it I actually did have to document on my own. The stuff with like the white splat and the was the turnaround, the shell turnarounds.
Hmm.
Those are from a part of memory called OAM, object attribute memory, which is where the game stores like all the X and Y coordinates of all the like sprites that are being drawn on screen, things like the P-switch in Mario and all the moles and some other things that move around. And it really wasn't documented, and I just sort of had to like try things and watch memory, just like watch
the
memory
memory.
emulator and just see what memory changed and when certain memory addresses changed.
That's so.
So I did
that's
have
so
to document
crazy.
some of that myself. But,
So I guess what would be the short version of how do you guys how do people figure this out? What do you think
Yeah.
a nice short version of that would be?
short version is, I mean, it's helpful to get a degree in computer science. Recommend that. It's like you have to understand what is going on at a very low level, what a processor does. So like start studying assembly, start studying computer systems. It's all useful. it's not, there's no easy way to figure this stuff out.
Yeah. So Turntablist has a question. Is that a legitimate question with your Minecraft stuff?
What
In
was
in
the
chat, Turntablist, are you in the chat? Or do you want me to ask you? I can ask you the question.
Oh, I'm in the chat. Oh, I didn't see that question. Let's see the question. Yeah, why don't you ask it? Probably.
Ask him please to do credits warp inside Minecraft built on his in-game Minecraft Super Nintendo emulator. Is that even a thing?
So I didn't make a Super Nintendo emulator. I made an Atari emulator. I was thinking of doing a dragster speedrun, but the thing about it is it's like runs 1 frame every 4 hours, or no, sorry, 1 frame every 4 minutes. So it would, the 5.51 would be like 5 hours 51, or it'd actually be like 20 hours.
Here's a really good question though. As a utility 3D developer, do I have to worry about these types of glitches appearing in my game? Now,
Yes.
Yes and no. Doesn't it only apply due to popularity as well? I mean, you need a lot of people in the community to really be investigating this kind of stuff, right?
Yes and no. There are people who are more skilled at this than I am that are capable of figuring that sort of thing out on their own. Anyone who writes software can write bugs that are exploitable, and you just have to have good coding practices. You have to like know what good security practices are. Anyone who's writing code, I mean, yeah, you're right. Some targets are less popular to try and attack. So that's certainly true, but like, if the guy's asking the question, it probably means that there's people who might want to exploit it, right?
Yeah, because even for me though, like I'm strictly RTA. Like I've done a little bit of tasking and stuff like that, but even for me, something like this, I wouldn't be able to figure out. I'd be able to mimic it and manipulate it, but as far as figuring it out, no, I'm a poser. I'll just copy you guys.
No, that's the cool thing. I actually really like when I get to take a route that I've figured out and show it to the community and other people get excited and like figure out better ways to get the like RAM addresses set, because like other people have great ideas for how to actually execute the stuff, and usually like the route I come up with is not like that close to the route we end up actually doing.
Mm-hmm.
People figure out all kinds of cool ways because they know more about like tricks you can do or just have other like experiences. And so it's really fun to see what the community comes up with whenever I come up with a new route.
Agreed. We're not going to delve too much into the Mario thing today. We're just going to stay focused on the ACE. But somebody asked me what do I think the shortest human possible time will be, and me, I have no idea. Currently, we've got a very low time in the 40s. What is the task time right now?
Okay, so the task time is 41.6.
Oh
wow, or
you're pretty close to the tasks.
But tasks are timed from power on.
Ah, okay. So
Different timing method.
if a
So
tasser RTA'd it, what would it be?
the RTA time is around 34 seconds. So we're like 10 seconds off that, and to a certain extent, I don't think we're gonna like ever hit that. Like
Do
I
you
don't
guys
think it's
think
ever
you're
gonna
ever
be
gonna hit
possible.
sub 40? Okay, let's pretend nothing new ever was invented. Do you guys
Yeah, if
think you could
nothing new
hit?
is invented, it's not gonna be sub 40. I think 43 or so. If it's like the same route but with like some like optimizations about movement and stuff,
Hmm.
I think 43 is probably like maybe optimistic.
Dude, I got a 41
It's
off
looking
camera. I wasn't
44
recording
is
it.
possible. Like we know that 44 is possible. I think I've had a 44 pace run that didn't finish,
Hmm.
or a couple, and I think the other runners have too. So 44 is possible. I think 43 might be, but I'm not. It might be optimistic too.
Yeah.
But there are some things like in the task, for instance. The task actually uses buttons that don't exist on a controller. It like a
Might as well
task
use all the
basic.
tools, right?
Yeah, I guess. It's personally, I wish that they did. I wish the task would do it. Using only buttons that exist on real controllers.
So what do you
But
mean buttons that don't exist? I don't know what that means.
so the task sort of imagines like it's like TaskBot basically. TaskBot plugs in through the controller port, and it
Hmm.
can send whatever data it wants.
Hmm.
Uh, Whereas if you have actual controllers hooked up through multitaps, there are some bits that get transmitted to the Super Nintendo that are just always zero because there's just no buttons hooked up to like those bits.
Yeah.
And moreover, like for instance, you can't press left and right at the same time. And actually, there's
Exactly.
some controllers where if you like push it really hard, you can, but we generally don't allow it in the speedrunning
Yeah.
community.
You can't do that.
Right. Whereas in the tasks, in tasks, it's totally fine.
Of
And
course.
so there's buttons that don't exist. There's left and right at the same time. So it's doing things that not only like even if you had superhuman reaction time or whatever,
Now I
it's
don't know if
not
that's
possible.
I don't know if that applies to like other tasks, but I've seen tasks in Super Mario World where when they're in the water, they're holding the shell to the right, but they're facing backwards. Is that the same kind of concept? Like
I
in that
that one's
instant, are they holding left and right at the same time?
I'm not sure about that specifically. I think usually those are like pressing left and right every other frame because it only actually like modifies your speed every other frame.
Okay.
So I think they're usually actually swapping back and forth every other frame in those.
So you got the extra 4 is what Furious is saying, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The console pulls 16 bits from controllers, but most controllers only transmit 12 bits.
Insane.
Actually, so the 4 bits that are remaining are called the ID bits, and so like the SNES mouse has different values than a Super Nintendo controller on those 4 bits, and like Super Scope has different values. I actually have a controller. It's like a numpad. It's got a numpad in it. It's a really weird controller, super rare.
That
But it
sounds
actually
like
has
some
different
kind of
ID bits.
weird Coleco or whatever it is.
It's from NTT Data. It was used originally with the NTT modem, which I think they planned a bunch of things, but the only actual thing that they ever did with it was like horse gambling. You could like connect to a server and gamble on horse races with the NTT modem. And so they had made this numpad controller that was supposed to be paired with it. And I don't even know, but it has numpads. And but really none of that matters for what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is it's a normal controller. It has all the regular buttons, but the ID bits are different, and you can
Yeah.
actually do different code with that in the joypad auto read registers, which I was talking about earlier, the where the current route actually reads code from. So you could actually do things using numpad controllers that you can't do with normal controllers. But I've restrained myself. Actually, to be honest,
Thank you.
to be honest, I need to be fully honest because I actually found the newest route because I was looking for ways I could exploit the numpad controller.
That's crazy. So that's
trying to find
another
out-
that's another short way like of explaining how these things are discovered, right? Sometimes just purely by accident.
Yeah.
Not saying that yours was purely by accident, but that is a true thing. Like sometimes things can just happen on accident.
Yeah.
But-
Actually, for this one, I also another thing I did was I wrote a script that would just like try writing every possible value that you could jump to, and like seeing what happened and like automatically recording if something good happened. So I just like loaded a state in a task and like played it forward a frame and saw if like writing that particular value worked, and then
Yeah.
I like loaded the state, wrote a different value, and just like
Try it again and try it again.
thousands of different values to find the jump locations that actually works.
Somebody asked, what was your education? You said you had a, is it a degree?
Yeah, I have a bachelor's degree in computer science.
Right on.
And I worked at
Okay,
Microsoft for 3 years too.
so with that, with the whole speedrunning thing, this will be more of a broad question. So why this? Why do you do this in super, like you got all these crazy backgrounds with like schooling and stuff like that. Why does it all like bring you back to doing this stuff? Like why does this interest you? Speedrunning, these glitches and the hunting and stuff like that.
I do it because I can. Well, I've been
Of course.
I've been a professional YouTuber for the last 6 years.
You're like a Terminator of Super Mario World.
I quit my job at Microsoft. I was a programmer at Microsoft.
Cool.
But my YouTube channel was really successful, and ever since then, it was 2012. I've been independent.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was Minecraft originally, is what I did. But I mean, getting into like starting to watch AGDQ and I mean, I always paid attention to SDA, Speed Demos Archive. I would like randomly go and check out, whatever random run.
They always had like it was like news broadcasts on their front page. I loved it, right?
Yeah.
They gave you like a little like message board on top of your run. They were like, he smashed it out, and it was always so much fun.
But once I saw AGDQ I think it was 2013. Once I saw that and I realized that people like did live speed runs, I always thought it was something you just did offline. Once I realized people like streamed it, I got addicted.
Yeah, kind of just like with Darbian, right? It was just like checking it out and
yeah. And for me, with my specific background, like I love the technical side. I love learning from these streamers who know a ton about their games, how the game is working at like a very technical level. So, and it's very similar to what I would do in Minecraft as well. I did very technical work in Minecraft, a lot of engineering and yeah.
So at the beginning, were you super pleb at the beginning? Did you ever go into someone's stream and you're like, why did you jump there? Like, were you like that at once?
Yeah, I remember going to X Paco's stream. He was going for world record attempts in 11x at the time. That was before Cloud was discovered, and I just sort of like, I mean, everyone starts out horrible at speedrunning, and I'm still not great. My trick is to get world record is I'm not good at games. I just like invent new categories or new routes, right?
Yeah, exactly. And because you watched people from GDQs, I mean, that just kind of pushed you in a mild direction towards speedrunning. Speedrunning isn't your full background when it comes to game, like you just said. Like you like it, but you don't think you're like amazing at it. But you like the aspect of discovering new routes and new strategies and stuff like that. The exploring. Yeah. That's one of my favorite parts too about speedrunning as well. I like taking it to different places or just simply doing things that nobody has ever thought of.
Yeah.
Because then it changes the way people look at it, and
And I think my background is well suited to doing things that a lot of other runners aren't capable of doing. Just like I just have specific knowledge that lets me, dig into things that the other runners can't. Did you have
a big childhood with Mario or Nintendo or any of that stuff? Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I played Mario 3 when I was like 5 or something, 6.
We all did, of course.
And Super Mario World, definitely one of the hot games of my childhood. So,
did you ever have a Sega?
Yeah, we had a Sega. We had what did we have? We had like it was like Cool Driving or something. But we had Sonic.
Road Rash. Too. Yeah, Sonic as well. Yeah.
And I played a lot of Sonic too. Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, me too. I always had the 2s, right? At Sonic 2, Mortal Kombat 2, Street Fighter, always the 2s.
Yeah, there's a good question from Master of Pants. Why didn't you have Dwango do a verify in the original credits warp before attempting a real Unreal hardware? So Dwango is the guy who basically he's the guy who has TaskBot, right? Mm-hmm. He physically owns it and he puts all the work into it. And so a lot of what he does nowadays is he verifies tasks on real hardware. So the question is, why didn't I ask him to console verify? And the answer is, well, I didn't know him back then. I didn't know anybody back then. This was nobody from the task community talked to me because I didn't have anything to do with tasks.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I was a crappy 11x at speedrunner. I was, maybe I was like number 10 on the list or something. And moreover, I'm not sure he like did a ton of that back then. Like I think he worked with
A lot of the
well-known
taskbot
caster
stuff was
games.
in development back then.
Yeah,
If you are referring to like
yeah.
2013 and 14, was just
It was more like 2015. Like TaskBot worked, and it was like it was doing stuff at like I think that may have been the year that they showed off Snake and Pong. Maybe that was SGDQ the year before or something. But yeah, I didn't know him, and I didn't know anyone in the community. And actually, Master June got mad at me for not like uh, like when I made my big video that went super viral about the very first credits warp on console. Like I
Mhm.
didn't give credit to any of the task community, and it's like I didn't even know that much of the history
Yeah, it
back
was
then. I
just an
just saw Jeff
accident,
W's
right?
run. Yeah, and so yeah, he got mad at me.
Whoops. Yeah, but everyone's credited properly at this point anyway, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's never like one of those like you knew you should have credited someone but you didn't. You know, it was never like that. So
yeah.
luckily everything
I think I'm
worked
usually
out.
pretty good about crediting people when
Of
it's
course.
due.
Well, people want to be respected for the hard work they put into things, right?
Yeah,
So you know you're gonna highly credit yourself for all the hard work you put in, but
yeah.
you don't get any joy lying about fake work you've put in, right? So
Right.
there's nothing
Yeah.
nothing enjoyable about that. But with all of that said, is there for everyone out there who do these kind of complicated runs and tasks and credit warps, do you have any advice for any of them? Anything to like lift any spirits if
Mm.
anyone's having any trouble?
Yeah, there's a couple runners. Anyone who's trying to run this route is having trouble. It's hard. By the way, you're currently watching the world record, the current world record. This is yeah. Um,
Just a reminder.
just for those.
We'll
Um,
start it over again for you guys.
it's it's like yeah, you really have to practice. Like every little thing needs practice. I think.
Well,
It's
how do you get through those times where you're just not getting it? Like how do you tell yourself the next day, you know what? Let's fail a billion times again today. I'm okay with that. Like how do you convince yourself that that's okay and that you can keep doing it? Because there's a lot of people out there who
yeah.
just who stop and give up because they keep failing, right? They don't
I've
achieve
gotten
what they're trying to get.
I've gotten a lot better at that. I used to be a lot more disheartened when things would just not go my way for an entire stream. Um, I think it helps to like sit down, actually like during practice while you're practicing, each
Mhm.
little trick that you're doing, spend a little while, set up a save state with whatever hardware you have for save states, and do 100 attempts on each trick. And I mean that's going to take a while, but it's good practice anyway.
Mhm.
And record the number that you get right. Record the number that you like do successfully, and you
Okay.
get it like a percentage out of that, right? And if you do that for every trick that's in the run, and you multiply all those percentages together, that's the probability of finishing a run. And that's usually like you get what I'm saying?
No, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You're
It's
trying to
usually
you're trying
lower
to
than you think.
create an equation through probability and skill
Right.
with maximum amount of attempts. Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right. And it doesn't account for like nervousness or like things going weird or whatever, but it's just like it's like a
You're just
usually
a
the number is
broad
lower than you think.
example.
And but if you know that number, and the number is like 2% or something, when you finish a run and it doesn't work, you didn't get the time you wanted, you failed a trick that you wanted, you don't have to get sad, because you can say to yourself like, okay, come on, like this like 0.5% chance of finishing didn't happen this time, I'm not going to get upset over that, right?
Yeah,
the
point
the
0.5,
trick,
right? Like
like
really.
the trick to getting that, like the time you want, is to be consistent and do it the number of times till you do like get that 0.5% chance to all
Yeah,
line up. Yeah,
exactly.
2% might be is actually probably a high number for a lot of things.
You should always
That's
be
actually super high.
satisfied with your PBs as well, right?
Oh yeah,
Okay, so
oh yeah,
you want to save 30 seconds, but you saved 0.5 seconds. Don't
yeah.
bum yourself because you've still done better than you've ever done before. There should be no
I
reason to
think
be upset.
I think people get way too, like, people have just way too high standards. A lot of runners have way too high standards for where they want to be. They know what the perfect run is like, and they want it so bad.
Right? Yeah.
But they don't have proper respect for like how rare probabilistically that run is of happening.
Some runs,
just
yeah,
because
definitely.
of human error, variance.
Well,
So
people have asked me many times, well, Mitch, why don't you create a ROM hack that has the hands taken out and the early hammer and see what time you can get? And it's because realistically I would never achieve that because the nerves, right? Like human error. There's
Yeah.
like I can't practice being nervous. Nobody can.
Okay.
You have to put yourself in that position and then
Yeah,
see
that's
how
the
you
only
strive.
practice you get.
Exactly. And that's where a lot of attempts and resetting comes from. It's very good practice. But yeah. So as you guys have seen from a lot of people we've done interviews from, a lot of it just comes from, just keep trying and, don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah.
So it's good stuff. Oh, look at that first try. Boom. You fell in between the two pipes, scrub.
Yeah, there's a little embarrassing
Can't even
moments
jump.
in some of these runs. Yeah.
Well, it's good to hear your history, man. It's really good to hear the history of this as well. And I had no idea that everyone played a particular role in this.
Yeah.
And now, for me, in this interview, that was probably the best thing to hear, was that, Panga got a chunk, and Dram got a chunk, Area 51's going for it now, and Furious is played a particular role, and then we got all these people, and then you're in. It's so cool. Brings the community together.
There have been a lot of people who've just like contributed little bits to different parts of the run. It's cool.
Well, with that being said, is there anything else you would like to say right before we wrap this up? Aside from goodbye, guys, and have a good day.
No, that's good. Check out my Kill Bowser runs coming up in the next couple days.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want, you can. For anyone who doesn't know him, throw in your YouTube in chat, right? Throw in your YouTube.
Plug. Yeah.
Plug your
SethBling.
YouTube, plug your Twitch, plug your Twitter, right in chat. For anyone who doesn't know SethBling, watch the content he creates. It's very good. What is your? I gotta ask.
YouTube.com/SethBling, Twitter.com/SethBling, Facebook.com/SethBling.
Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook's just a mirror of Twitter though. But,
well, I gotta ask this. What's your favorite topping on pizza?
Yeah, for some reason my mind went to pineapple, and it's not my favorite thing, but like I like it more like like I'm an outlier because I actually like it. Favorite. Jeez.
I'm so generic. Pepperoni and cheese is me.
Yeah, but it's probably pepperoni. Like
right?
It's probably the
tastes
best.
So good.
Like you add anything else to pizza, and like if there's pepperoni on it, it's still just gonna make it better.
Exactly. Like I say to a lot of people, okay, so you like meat lovers, right? You like bacon and sausage, sure. But if I didn't have bacon and sausage, would I still eat pizza? Yeah. Right. So pizza's just too universal for me.
Oh, that's so good.
It's just so good. Well, thanks for coming out, and thanks for doing the thing, man. It was lots of fun.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, I'm glad I got to brain pick you. It was really fun.
Oh, you can brain pick me anytime, Mitch.
There we go. Remember that time at GDQ where I told you to wait right there, and I came back and you didn't wait right there, but you were actually still there, just hiding behind the table?
I don't remember that.
Mind fucked, man. You got
Sounds
me.
Like me. Okay.
All right, well, say your goodbye, guys. Thanks, man. Thanks a lot for coming out, and I'm gonna catch up with you in a little bit on Discord, so don't go too far. All right.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks a lot, dude. Bye.